As I browse the internet, I notice that people in general have a misconception on what dimensions and densities are. It's understandable because many listen to misguiding channeled material that is then being spread across the internet in conjunction with disinformation being put out by deliberate disinformation agents. The most common misconception I notice is that by being on a spiritual path, we increase our soul vibration as we go along, whereafter we eventually graduate to the 4th or 5th dimension. Then we will dwell in one of these particular dimensions for an extended amount of time until we graduate from there and move into the next dimension. I wrote extensively about dimension and densities in the West Penry papers, WPP, particularly in the second level of learning, with a hypothesis on how it works. But it's worth bringing up again because people are being misled. The biggest misconception is the so-called ascension process. The way it is presented by many channelers and teachers is that we ascend to higher dimensions as we evolve spiritually. This is not correct according to my own research. This is not how it works. We are third-dimensional 3D beings, and it's here in 3D that we have our main experience. This is the manifested playground where we and other star beings, whether in the Ka or within the Matrix, are operating. The AIF are 3D beings, the Ka star races are 3D beings, and the Queen is a 3D being as well in her manifestation. However, we all have the potential and the ability, with the correct knowledge, to nano-travel to other existing dimensions with our fire/avatar. Thus, there is no such thing as the 4th dimension being the dimension of love and compassion, where we will dwell for 1,000,000 years and then graduate to the 5th dimension and so on. The universe/the Ka is a playground where all star races/souls are having their experiences. The difference between the human soul group and the star races in the Ka is that we have amnesia. We don't know our full potentials, and we don't understand who we really are. This knowledge has been stripped away from us when the AIF took over the human experiment. Some teachers are using the term density instead of dimension and vice versa, while others use them interchangeably. This creates confusion because they are two different things. Densities are basically the levels of solidity within a certain dimension. If we take an example within the 3rd dimensional frequency we humans can perceive, it's easy to see that this reality part of the entire 3rd dimension is made up of different densities. A rock is obviously denser than the human body, and air is less dense than water. Thus, we can see that there are almost uncountable density levels within a certain dimension. However, for us humans, there is a limit to how many densities we can perceive with our 5 senses. We can perceive the density of water, and we can see water. However, we can't see air, although we know it exists. When we are out of our bodies, we can perceive more densities, and we can even nano-travel with our thoughts to other densities and dimensions by sending out our fires. With some training, we can even manifest things at will and with discipline by using our thoughts and intentions. This also works while we're in our bodies, although we've lost our knowledge how to control this ability. We all travel to other dimensions all the time on a daily basis, but we are not aware that this is what we are doing. When we ponder over things or try to solve a problem, we look inside for a solution, and when the solution comes to us, it comes from a place inside that vibrates on a higher level than where the problem was created, like Albert Einstein so famously said. In other words, we are unconsciously sending out fire fragments to other densities and dimensions where we can find answers. This is all dimensions are. If we would travel in a spaceship to a nearby planet or star, we might find it being abandoned when it actually isn't. The problem is that we can't perceive the life forms living there while we are limited to experience the universe merely from our five senses reality. There might be star beings living there, still in the third dimension, but in a less dense form, in another density which we can't perceive. As star beings who are not trapped within the matrix, they are still 3D beings with a mind and a soul, and from their perspective, the universe is just as physical as the frequency we humans live in. The only difference is that their existence is less dense, which gives them more opportunities. We are all star beings, but as a star being in the car, we can shapeshift so much easier. We consist of perhaps trillions of very small fires who are gathered together into one being, which is you. And with your thoughts and intentions you can reshape and reconstruct these fires at will. This means that you can manifest as a bird being, a reptilian, a human, an insectoid, or whatever you wish. Then, when you see appropriate, you can change form again as often as you want to. Some might want to ask why, if the above is the case, we have star races who look quite similar within a particular race. We hear about reptilians, praying mantises, cat beings and bird beings, etc. Why does it seem like certain star races look the same if all individuals can shapeshift? If we go along with the hypothesis I am presenting here, a very possible answer would be that each star or planet where a certain soul group exists has its own environment, which leads to its own experiment, where the star beings living there have certain common experiences, just like we do here on Earth. On one world it might be most beneficial to have a bird-like body that can fly, while somewhere else a reptilian body would be more efficient. This doesn't mean that the star beings living there can't shapeshift within their communities. My case in point is that the ka, in which star beings experience their reality, is third dimensional and solid in a very similar way as here on Earth. The additional dimensions are used by 3D beings to seek clarity, exploring a potential future, finding possible outcomes, and learn how to take the best action forward. Star beings nano-travel by sending a number of their fires into a certain dimension in order to gather information that can assist them in the third dimension in which they spend their time experiencing. This doesn't exclude that there are beings out there without bodies, who for one reason or another choose not to manifest in the playground, but the purpose of this universe is to experience the majority of our existence within the 3D range. The universe is fluid, therefore one dimension and density can overlap into another, which makes it difficult to set boundaries between the different dimensions and densities. We humans have a tendency to number and label things for better comprehension, but when we do, we must look at that as a tool and a model that we create for our own convenience. It's not an exact science. Most of us have sometimes in our lives had epiphanies coming out seemingly from nowhere. In many cases, we might in these moments have experienced an overlap of two dimensions or densities when they expand and retract in wave-like patterns. Here on Earth, we inhabit human bodies, but what happens when we leave the matrix? It depends on what we choose to do. Let's pretend we are going to a certain star system where we meet with the Orion Council. Because we've shed our human bodies, we will arrive there as a soul/mind and etheric body, usually in form of an orb, where all fires are compressed into an orb-like shape. Once we've arrived, we will probably be told to take a female form of some kind, because before the court of Orion, everybody presents themselves as females. If we, after that, decide to move to a certain star or planet to expand in our experiences, we will most likely shape our fires into an avatar body that fits the environment best in the location where we're at. Let's say that the best potentials in a certain environment is like a cat being. If so, that's the body we create for ourselves. If we later on want to move to another star, we repeat the above to fit into that environment. The point is that the body we shape by compressing our fires will be perceived as physical as the body we have as humans. As I wrote in the second level of learning, we can metaphorically look at universes as ponds, where one pond is one universe. Then there are 12 ponds in a cluster, making up 12 universes. In addition to that, there are other 12 pond universes as well, and so on. Because the Queen, the creatrix of the universes, likes the number 12, there are 12 dimensions in this universe, and 144 dimensions in our cluster of universes. However, there is no portal between two universes, which means that the star being can't travel from one universe to another. This is because each universe is its own experiment and has its own set of rules, which often is entirely different from other universes. Souls in this universe are not sent out to experience the conditions in other universes. If we play around with numbers for a while, because that's what we're used to, there's a certain dimension model that I currently can relate to. And this is a model that has been developed by certain remote viewers and professional out-of-body experiencers, such as William Buhlman and others. It gives us an idea of how this universe is set up. However, keep in mind that this is just a model and nothing more. It takes into consideration 11 dimensions instead of 12, which I suggest is the correct number. Let's see what this model will show us. The fourth dimension is the blueprint for the third dimension. This means that this is the dimension where our thoughts are getting manifested in etheric form before they manifest here in 3D. The fourth dimension is sometimes referred to as the playground. I would say that the playground contains both of the fourth and the third dimension because of this final manifestation process. This process has been mapped by both William Buhlman and Teal Swan, who are both doing extensive out-of-body travels, which is equivalent to mono travel. This is also why people who do astral travels might see strange shapes in the fourth dimension. Some have reported human heads that are not yet fully shaped, while others have reported half-constructed buildings or other incomplete objects floating around in space. These are thought forms that are created by beings in the third dimension, thought forms that have not yet taken shape and manifested in 3D. The fifth dimension is where all probable paths in 3D are presented to us. In the sixth dimension, all probable timelines for our universe are contained. It is the blueprint area for this universe. The seventh dimension is where every thought that has been thought regarding this universe is contained. Those who have read the WPP, the first level of learning, might recall that the Live Physics Group California, LPGC, called this the thought boundary. Likewise, it's in the seventh dimension all the probable timelines for the entire universe exists, just like the fifth dimension contains all the probable timelines for the third dimension part of the universe. In the eighth dimension, we start having access to the infinity of this particular universe as it relates to other universes. The ninth dimension is comparable to the fifth dimension, not only for us in this universe, but for other universes as well. The 10th dimension contains all probable realities for all of the probable universes. They all contract down to a single point. One could say that it's the top level of the universal library. In the 11th dimension, we enter the 0-point field. It's the totality of collective consciousness before it is giving expression. In other words, it's the divine feminine herself, experiencing herself as oneness. We merge with the divine. Some experienced out-of-body practitioners have been able to reach this point at one time or another, William Buhlman being one of them and Tom Campbell another. But there are more people who have managed to do it. It's where thoughts no longer exist and the journeyer just exists in perfect bliss as oneness. If we look at the above model, we can see a pattern, which is as follows. The 5th dimension contains all probable realities for us as individuals. The 7th dimension contains all probable realities for this universe. The 9th dimension contains all probable realities for all universes. Each dimension encompasses a bigger picture of the whole than the previous, lower ones. We hope this has been to some assistance.